up, people? It's Bo again. So today we're going to talk about a term that I have had just rattling around inside my head. So we're going to end up talking about something we normally don't talk about on this channel. One of the topics that I try to avoid for the most part. But to be honest, I think if I don't talk about this term will just stay stuck in my head forever. So here we are. So today we're going to talk a little bit about religion, specifically the Christian religion. And before we get into this, I do want to acknowledge that I'm aware that this isn't all churches. I'm very well aware of that. I know churches that are not subject to this commentary. That being said, I know a whole lot more that are subject to it. So what is a church in general? It's not a building. It's not just a building. It's a group of people. It's a power structure. It has power because of the group of people. So a church is a power structure made up of a group of people. A Christian church, in theory, should be a group of people who encourage the teachings of Christ. It kind of goes without saying. Seems like it should. Now I want you to think about your church, the one you go to, or for a lot of people on this channel, the one you used to go to at some point in time, if you were Christian. Does it actually encourage the teachings of Christ? Is that a thing that it goes on? The people in that church, your peers in that church, I'm not talking about the sermon. That's just something that happens. The other people in the church, do they encourage that behavior, those teachings? If you're being honest, what are you more likely to hear from your peers there? That you should give the hungry something to eat, the thirsty something to drink? Or are you more likely to be encouraged to call them welfare queens? What about the stranger outside? Are you encouraged to invite them in? Or are you more likely to hear a chant of build the wall, build the wall? What about the needy? Encouraged to clothe them, care for them, assist them, or tell them to get a job, you bum? What is more likely? What about looking in on the sick, healing the sick, taking care of them, visiting them? I'm willing to bet that in many churches, well, you give everybody health care, that's socialism, and therefore something to be feared. What about visiting people in prison? Is that encouraged, or is it more one of those, he made his choices, lock him up and throw away the key, lock her up, lock her up? What about loving thy neighbor as thyself? Or are you encouraged to other people? Oh, those people, they don't count as your neighbors. So those people, you can hold them to a standard you could never live up to yourself. Therefore, always feel better about yourself. What is more likely? Does your church encourage forgiveness? Or does it encourage you to hold a grudge? To continue to look down on those people you've othered? What's more likely? And if most of the answers are from the second option, you have to ask yourself whether or not it's really a Christian church. Or maybe it's a post-Christian church. A power structure that exists for other purposes. You know, Christians are very, very fond of saying the United States was founded as a Christian nation. Now, I've at length shown that that's not actually the case. while there are a bunch of Christians who participated in the founding, a whole lot of them signed on to a document that explicitly said the United States of America was not founded in any way on the Christian religion. But if it was a Christian church, wouldn't it probably use that power structure to try to get the government to embody some of the teachings of Christ? But I'm willing to bet that if through these questions most of your answers came from the second column, if anybody proposed using the government to do any of this stuff, well, that church would not call them Christ-like. They'd probably have some other names for them, right? So is it a Christian church? Or is it post-Christian? Is it just a power structure that exists because people are used to it existing? Just dogmatic, going through the steps, going through the motions. A place where people show up to socialize and engage in whatever. Not really about any of the teachings. Suddenly I have an image of somebody walking around flipping over tables and chasing people with a scourge. This is a question that eventually people are going to have to ask. If you are a Christian, this is something you're going to have to reconcile. The teachings versus what occurs among your peers, among your church, that power structure. And at some point, it might be useful to acknowledge that it is far easier and far more marketable and will get far more people in those seats if you give permission to be your worst, rather than provide encouragement to be your best. Anyway, it's just a thought. Y'all have a good day.